let's get into Pierre Dorion's offseason priority checklist. Pilsy, let's start with number one, because this one, it's pretty obvious.
Number one is extending a number one center in Josh Norris. And sure, you could say maybe someday Tim Stützle will be the number one center, but for now, 30 plus goals in a shortened season for Josh Norris, he is the number one center. And that's got to be a goal number one, because the Senators cannot have another offseason where they have an RFA, like they did Brady, lingering and contract talks, same agent, go through training camp and have him signed hours before the season opener. They cannot, the home opener even at that. They cannot have that happen again. They need to get going on this thing. And I think maybe a lot of people are kind of arguing, maybe you bridge Norris and so that you can have more flexibility to give Tim Stützle an extension. I don't see a world where Norris and his camp go for a bridge deal. He just had one of the best seasons you can have as a young centerman. He's noted as the number one centerman right now. So there's no better time to cash in on a long-term deal than now if you're Norris. And I think if you're the Senators, you want some peace of mind knowing you have your top line locked up, and whatever happens, you can mix and move around. That's fine. But for me, the number one priority is signing Josh Norris to an extension.
And a long-term extension at that. I know you said that Norris probably wouldn't be interested in a short-term deal, but if Dorion says, hey, look, we kind of want to see what we have with Tim Stützle this upcoming season. He needs his next contract as well. Would you like to take a 3-year bridge deal? Because ultimately, even a 2-year bridge deal, show us that you can be a 40-goal scorer consistently. And then the number is going to be even closer to double digits at that point. Like right now, he's got the sample size of being a 35-goal scorer, okay? And he did it in 66 games, or he missed a bunch of times. So, yeah, on pace for 40, I don't think has the same leverage in a contract negotiation as 2-time 35-goal scorer, or even moving it up to the next couple of years and hitting 40. Would you be okay as the organization, because we're talking about Pierre Dorion's perspective? Of course, you're the agent, you're the player, you want to maximize your value. But if you're Dorion, would you be okay with offering a 2 or 3 year bridge deal for Josh Norris?
See, I'd be nervous to do that, because what if Norris gets better? What if he had
he's earned it.
Yeah, but then Tim Stützle is going to get better, and I really think it's best case scenario to get him signed long term. And the thing is, Ross, if Pierre Dorion decides I'm going to play hardball, Josh Norris and his camps say, sure, you want to have another season where one of your top guys isn't signed through training camp? We'll play hardball. We've done this before. Last time we got what we wanted. We can do it again. So I don't think that's the right direction to go. I think Josh Norris has the leverage now, and I think you can't have kind of another tense, awkward negotiation here. I think you need to get it done, and I like the long-term option personally.
Here's why I'm arguing, and I'm not saying it should be short term. I will celebrate to the heavens if he gets to that 7-8 year term. Pilsy, 66 games this year, the most he's ever played in a season. He's played 125 NHL games.
I mean, not to his fault though. It's been COVID seasons, and
exactly. I mean, he played 56 out of 56 games. But I mean, the NHL, everyone talks about how it's a grind playing all 82. There is risk involved with giving a guy who's never played more than 66 games in a season an 8-year term at what I'd imagine is over $7 million a year.
Definitely. But I don't see a lot of risk in a guy that can score on the power play like he does. Like you can put him in a class with, I mean,
like Ovechkin,
calm down a little bit, but you can put him in that area because he has that ability to have that kind of efficiency. And sure, the shooting success rate, it's not going to be sustainable at 20%. That's fine. But
number 2 in the NHL in the last 16 years total.
But that's because he has a great shot, and he's a shoot-first center playing with a guy that loves to muck it up in front of the net and cause chaos and bury rebounds. I just think it's a no-brainer to get him done long-term, because then you have that relief, you have that ease, where if you do a bridge deal, and then who knows what happens with Tim Stützle and then Jake Sanderson. I just think it makes sense to get the core locked up while you can. I'd rather it be a problem that Norris is locked up and then you have to deal with Sanderson and Stützle, rather than Norris is a bridge deal and then you have to deal with him, Stützle, and Sanderson, right? Like,
True.
why not check one off your list? And that's why it's number one on our top priority.
Not a 6-year deal, though, okay?
Yeah, you probably don't want to go that route. Yeah.
I am not handling an offseason where Norris,
Yeah.
Shabbat, and Brady Tkachuk
Oh,
all have
no.
their same contracts coming up.
Yeah,
Even having
stagger it a
Shabbat
little.
and Brady having the exact same amount of term left scares the living bejesus out of me.
That's a future Locked On Senators podcast problem. Let's not get into that now. I can't handle that, Ross.
Yeah, we don't have to. But bottom line, whether it's short or long term, the bottom line. Oh, no, sorry. It was Batherson, 27, 28. Yes. Brady and Shabbat are the same year, and Batherson is 1 year before that right now. And then Colin White is 1 year before that, but we're going to discuss him in just a moment. Bottom line, whether it's short or long term, having Josh Norris sign before training camp has to be the number one priority for this team and for this management team, who should be on the hot seat if they get out to a bogus start like they have in back-to-back seasons, winning only 4 of their first 20 games. Unacceptable. Jobs have to be axed if that's the case. We'll finish up with another job who caught some heat over the weekend. But Pilsy, number 2 on Pierre Dorion's off-season checklist is
acquire a top 6 winger, whether that is through free agency, whether that's through a trade, and I'll even add a little more, acquire a veteran top 6 winger, because bringing another young guy in or bringing a guy who had a down year and you say, oh, he's going to bounce back this year, cannot happen. He needs to be someone who is in the prime of his career, locked up to a long, well, I shouldn't say prime of his career, because Claude Giroux, I wouldn't argue, is in the prime of his career, yet he still produces at an elite rate. But it has to be someone who they know can transition seamlessly into the top 6, and they're not banking on him having a big year. They're banking on them staying consistent as they have. So we've talked about this a whole bunch. Fiala, Giroux, those are the top 2 guys. There's other options. If you want to hear about those other options, check out our previous episodes about which top 6 wingers to acquire. A
lot of people are saying, where the heck is Claude Giroux? We specifically targeted trades.
Yes, those were trade options. Exactly. So that's number 2 on the list, because once you get your centerman locked up in Norris, then you slot down. You say, okay, top line, good, check. How can we improve this second line? Even though I think it's likely Stützle and Batherson will be on that second line, I have no issues at all if they put in permanent marker, top line, Tkachuk, Norris, Batherson, and then figure out the second line like that. Nothing wrong with that at all, as those guys are absolute studs. So that is number 2 on the list, is going out, because you got to solve the problems in-house first, right? Before you can move on, figure out your own stuff, and then you look at to other options.
Well, this one, you could still acquire the top 6 forward and then get back into an in-house problem. And number 3, you have to find a way to move on from Nikita Zaitsev. It is ridiculous at this point. He's been here for 3 seasons. I've had enough of watching him fumble the puck. I've had enough of watching him ice the puck, keep tired players on the ice, and have the other team just hem the Senators in their own zone consistently. Like, if there was a stat for most time spent in certain areas of the ice, I know he gets a lot of defensive zone starts, and honestly, that's an indictment on DJ Smith as well. I like DJ, but that is an indictment on who he.
But you don't want to start him in the offensive zone either.
Well, he wanted him on the team in general, so I think that we can kind of rationalize it however we want, but DJ wanted him here, and he wanted him here to be an elite defender. The only reason he's elite at it is because he does it more than anyone else, because the puck is never controlled on his stick when he gets it. It may as well be a grenade. He just hits it off the glass. I'm surprised he doesn't lead the league, and maybe he does in delay of game penalties, where he just flips the puck over the glass, because he's never made a seam play through the middle. He's never hit the centerman coming out and curling in right inside the blue line. Like, that's the kind of defender that Tim Stützle needs when he plays center, especially him. Norris as well, but to a lesser extent. When Timmy gets the puck with speed curling out of his zone, all of a sudden he gets a controlled zone entry 90% of the time. Having Zaitsev on this team is holding them back, and you could call number 3 trim the fat, because there's some other guys who need to go. We know Tierney and Mete won't be back. That's a good start, but there's still some other guys here where it's addition by subtraction. And honestly, Pilsy, they have Tampa's second round pick, and that's going to be a late second. If you have to give up Ottawa's own second round pick,
Okay. Ooh.
like 37th, 38th overall, whatever it is, I'm doing it. I
Do it.
don't care.
Do it.
I don't care. I need him off the team. I need it.
Yeah.
Like I need air to breathe.
It's run its course and it hasn't worked out. He's got 2 years of signing bonuses coming up, so we know the Sens don't like dealing with that. They need to move on from him. I don't see the buyout option being the proper route for Zaitsev. I think you got to start calling Bill
Arizona.
Armstrong in Arizona. Like that's where this has to go, and that's the
convince
best option.
them. Be like, hey, you guys kind of revitalized Shane Gostisbehere to a degree. Like, hey, maybe he could be an elite defender for you.
And I mean, you don't even have to convince them. You can be like, what do we got to do for you to take him? And
you guys like Connor Bedard? You guys like Matvei Michkov? Boy, do I have a cheat code for you.
Yeah, well, we've seen that cheat code almost work successfully for the Senators when it wasn't supposed to work, with Zaitsev being around and the Senators picking in the top 10 year after year after year after year. So yes, addition by subtraction, Zaitsev is the number one concern. He's got to go.
Number 4, buy out Colin White. And this one hurts my heart a little bit to say. Yeah. We love Colin White.
The boys love Colin White.
$4.75 million. You were discussing with me this 1/3 buyout. How much would they be saving over the next 4 years?
I've got it right here, Ross. And again, it sucks when you have a high character guy that there was so much promise. And we got to remember, he was the first guy to sign long term and say, yep, I'm sticking around with the Sens.
For that money.
Yeah, but still, he could have been like, nah, I don't like where this team's going. I don't believe in the direction. I don't believe in the core. I'll just take my little paychecks here. I'll take my paychecks here and there and call it a day and hit UFA and make my own decisions. But he decided, I'm going to stick with it, and you got to have some respect there. But it's not working out, and the buyout at the 1/3 option just makes so much sense. So here's the numbers, Ross. Total cost $5,250,000. That's only $500,000 more than 1 year of his cap hit. Total cost of the contract if they buy it out. The total savings are $10 million and $10,500,000. And the annual cost is only going to be $875,000. So an entry-level contract every year until 2027, 2028. And that's hardly a hit on your cap. You're not going to notice it at all. Colin White's going to get an opportunity to play somewhere else
for like $2 million.
Probably, where he's going to fit in better. And I just think it makes so much sense. If we're not dealing with the 1/3 buyout ratio and it's the typical 2/3 buyout ratio, maybe you start thinking about keeping him around and hoping that he can be a glue guy and he can be a solid bottom 6 player. But you have to take advantage of this opportunity with the 1/3 buyout. And if you're looking at extending Norris, Stützle, Sanderson, bringing in a top 6 winger, bringing in more players, you need to dump this contract. It sucks to say, but this is a big priority for the Sens because you're not going to have this opportunity next year. If you decide you want to do this, you're going to have to pay the 2/3 price. Sure, 1 year's knocked off, but you've paid a full year of that salary to get to that point. So it's tough, but what's the famous saying, Ross? Hockey is a business, and you have to make a business decision here.
Yeah, in his last 130 games in the last 2 years, he's got 20 goals. But I mean, he's settled into a kind of a defensive rhythm, and people knew when they drafted him that he'd be a defense-first type player. But they also drafted him to be a centerman. And now with the emergence of Tim Stützle at center, Josh Norris, and Shane Pinto, Mark Kaslick, Ridley Gregg, guys coming up who are going to be fighting for spots, like, he's going to have to be a 3rd-line right wing, if not 4th-line right wing, because we're talking about adding a guy in the top 6. And I mean, Joseph was playing right wing. He's kind of a lefty-righty. You can kind of move him plug and play wherever you need to, but I just don't see where you can have a guy making almost, and in his last year of his deal pills, he's making $6.25 million. Like that, you just can't have it. And this is the last summer that they're going to be able to have him on that 1/3 buyout. So I hate to say it, but Colin White has to be bought out unless you can find a trade partner with him. And
I even think the buyout makes more sense because if you find a trade partner, you're going to have to retain salary. You're probably going to have to sweeten the deal. It doesn't make sense. And look, I thought, Ross, all right, when he came back from injury, there was big opportunities for him. He got 24 games this year at the end of the year. 3 goals, 7 assists.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't enough. So
No, it wasn't. This one we'll just quickly touch on because I think we can do a full episode on this, but they've got to bring in at least one steady defenseman, like a Nick Holden, like what they did, where it's nothing crazy. You're hoping Jake Sanderson can step in there. But this year, they used 12 different defensemen, Pilsy.
Yeah.
You need to have depth. I don't want to see Dylan Hetherington play NHL games anymore. I want it to be a guy who you bring in on like a one by one contract, and maybe he's from the scrap pile.
Not a 2x2.
No, exactly. Let's cut that one in half. But
Yeah.
I do think that they need to bring in a defenseman, just as more depth, more reassurance, because guys are getting hurt all the time, and you don't want to be in a situation where, let's say, Sanderson or Shabbat, God forbid, they get a long-term injury early in the year.
Yeah.
You need to be able to have depth to reinforce and not just be like, oh, we lost Clark Bishop as well, so season's over, 20 games in. I don't want any that type of talk. And of course, that was with the center ice position earlier this year when Pinto and then Norris went down. But all that to say, Pilsy, this is going to be a crucial offseason for Pierre Dorion. I'll let you answer that and just discuss what you think other things that could be very important. And then we're going to finish up today's show by going through what your reactions are on Twitter at Sens Central. We got a lot of great responses there. So we'll roll through that in just a moment. But Pilsy, like we talked about 5, are those the only 5 things for you that need to happen for Pierre Dorion this offseason?
Honorable mention for, just quickly on the defenseman. If there's one thing that Pierre Dorion has done every offseason, it's bring in those types of defensemen.
Yeah.
Now, is it the right type of defenseman with the right contracts at the right time of their career and the right fit? No, it hasn't really worked out other than Nick Holden. But that is something that Pierre Dorion is aware of, and he usually does get done in the offseason. So that's good at least. Honorable mention for me, Ross, is they need to bring in some more front office staff. Like the fact that this is a team with this much talent and this much potential, and they don't have the front office staff to support them and make sure that the team, the franchise, the business as a whole is running effectively. That can't continue if this team's going to have success. Success drips from the top down, and they need to bolster that front office staff, especially after firing Pierre Maguire. So that would be my honorable mention for this checklist.
JP with a great point, talking about a sense of belonging that needs to be established for everyone in the community, and hoping that even fans who aren't hardcore fans of the team should want to purchase tickets because it's a fun event. But again, that's not on Dorion. JP mentions that. Reese talks about getting a top 6 winger and getting rid of Zaitsev, but he also says clearing up the goaltending situation with Murray being the preferred option to go. Now, the reason why I think Murray maybe staying is for the best is he played well when he was in net, and then if he does ultimately get hurt, then insurance covers all but $1 million of his contract. So I can see how that could be a solid play here. Spencer saying get rid of the pieces that don't work. So again, doubling down on addition by subtraction. And here's a solid point from Spencer. Even guys with a year left we should discuss. And that would be Tim Stützle, among others, probably most notably Tim Stützle. What do you think about potentially getting locked up this offseason?
I mean, in an ideal world, sure. Tim Stützle is not going to be interested in that, though.
Yeah, I agree here as well. Joe Albert mentioning this is solid. Get a top 6 forward, get a top 4D, and extend Norris. I mean, those two things are a little bit easier said rather than done. What do you think about people asking for a new director of pro scouting?
I don't think the scouting is the issue, and I think that's one area where, maybe you can add some extra pieces just to take a load off some of the scouts, but that's not where the issue is in my mind.
Yeah. What do you think about Michael Del Zotto? Some people here saying trade MDZ.
Yeah, sure, you can trade him, and the reason you would trade him is because of the relationship having totally soured between him and the team. The people, I'll say this again, the people that are advocating to buy Michael Del Zotto out, that is, I don't understand that at all. He only has one more year at $2 million. Like, that's such an unnecessary buyout when the Sens have, what, we just talked about it, 3-4 guys. Maybe that would be much more efficient buyout. So the buyout MDZ, I won't hear any of that. It doesn't make sense. But trading him, sure, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fair. I think he would probably as well. AJ mentioning invest in an analytics department. Clearly, Ottawa did do that. Spencer, I like this answer here. Move Zaitsev, add 0 over-the-hill veterans, add at minimum 1 top-end forward. So that's kind of the opposite of addition by subtraction, is don't cause yourself any problems that don't need to be had. This is
Yeah.
clearly from a Canucks fan saying trade for Tyler Myers 3 times over. I think that's a guy who they would like to get rid of, much like they did with Hamonic, although I would take Hamonic over him in a hurry. So we've got Fix the Defense as well from Sens fan Stu. We've got Bruce mentioning avoid the temptation of filling out the roster with AHL talent. So a lot of Giroux talk here as well. Yeah, there's lots. We've also got, Alex Formenton as an RFA. Yep. So there's other guys who you have to understand where they're going to fit into the pay scale going forward. We've got some salty replies as well. People thinking that Dorion's not the right man for the job. Hire Trotz and then quit. Okay, that would be
Mic drop.
That would be a wild maneuver. I don't know if Twitter organized this with a lot more just like all the positive things at the bottom, because now they're just getting a little wild down here. But top 6 forward, top 4 defenseman, and Josh Norris extending is clearly the top 3 priorities in terms of what I'm seeing here from the fans, but also getting rid of Zaitsev at all costs. But I think people are saying at all costs, Pilsy, and then they're like, no, but not for the 7th overall pick. No.
That cannot happen.
But you could probably include it with a 7th overall pick, but still get value. We saw Vancouver got Connor Garland and a solid defenseman as well, and Ekman, but a guy who's making big money. So
I was going to say, that was kind of Arizona offloading Ekman Larsson's deal as well.
Interesting.